So in the spring of 2016, with the help of 14 master teaching scholars and other UIC experts, UIC Center for the Advancement of Teaching and Learning Communities, or affectionately known as TLC, offered workshops on 6 topics, one of them being flipped instruction. The center was established in August 2015, and the goal was to facilitate the development of various size learning communities where UIC's faculty, who teach UIC's large and diverse student body, and especially those who teach undergraduates, have opportunities to grow as teachers, learn from peers, strengthen their teaching practice, and innovate inside and outside of their classrooms. This workshop on flipped instruction was organized in 3 sessions that were offered close to the start and at the end of the spring 2016 semester. In this video, we capture the main ideas about flipped instruction that both faculty seasoned in flipped instruction and faculty who were starting to flip material in their classrooms discussed during these 3 sessions. The goal is to contribute in the increasing library of examples of what flipped instruction is and looks like at the college level, its affordances, its tools, and its challenges, and also to highlight the value of structures that support faculty learning and development around teaching, facilitated by peers and instructional technology specialists. The video is organized as follows. First, 4 TLC Master Teaching Scholars, Anthony Corti in the Department of Managerial Studies, Martina Bout in the Department of Mathematics, Statistics, and Computer Science, Alison Castro Superfine, also from the Department of Mathematics, Statistics, and Computer Science, and Mike Stife in the Department of Chemistry, offer examples of how they implement flipped instruction in their own classrooms. After that, Tom Ocon in the Instructional Technology Lab offers a brief outline of tools to be used for multimedia creations that students can engage with before they come to class. Finally, a subset of the TLC teaching scholars who have experimented with flipping in spring 2016 with the help of peers and technology specialists present their reflections on the possibilities and challenges of flipping.
Flipping really is not this brand new idea that was concocted in some great think tank somewhere. It's actually something that's probably been going on, or we've all done the process of it, but we're now kind of rethinking what we used to do and actually applying it. We are doing the easy stuff. We are basically telling them what to remember, what to understand, and then we send them home and say, now go do the hard stuff, when we're not there to help them out. And they're sitting there going after 2 minutes saying, oh, heck with this, and they move on to something else. What we try to do is the reverse with flipping. Instead of doing the easy stuff in the classroom, we're going to do the easy stuff outside of the classroom and spend the classroom time, the applications, the creating, the analysis, the applying aspects that we hope they will do. Why? Because then we are there to help them. The former classroom, usually spend the first 5 minutes reviewing the homework. Then in a 50-minute class, the next 40 minutes, you're lecturing. And the students maybe are taking notes or taking naps or glazed over or whatever they're doing. And then if you got 5 minutes at the end, you're going to apply very quickly and maybe confuse them even more. With the flip, at least in my approach, I start with an icebreaker. I use the Socratic method. I rarely give answers in my class. I give a ton of questions based on the information they know. And if a student has a question, I say, well, what do you think about that? And I ask another student to answer it. And it actually works pretty well. The first couple of weeks, they're not sure, but it works pretty well. So we do a little review. We do an icebreaker of some kind, maybe a review. Then we'll do the review of the homework, whatever the case might be. Again, asking questions. And then we spend 9 or 10 minutes on a video or some kind of an introduction. But the remainder of the class, at least 30 minutes, is the application. Because you got to prepare this stuff ahead of time. But the good thing is, once you got it prepared, and if you don't make simple mistakes like I do, like in videos, put in dates, and you say, oh, damn, I can't reuse that one because it's last term, you're good to go. You can reuse them, repeat them. And if you get it right the first time, why recreate the ball? If it works, it works. But initially, you can have spent some time, but after that, you're good to go.
Students have to watch a video, and the video is short, 3 to 5 minutes in length. And then within Blackboard, they have to answer some questions. And sometimes I even ask questions, the function in the video. And I'm not going to tell you what the function is because you have to watch the video. And so just trying to get them to think about the topic and to understand parts of the things that are coming up in class. So we're running it in 5 sections. The class sizes, the smallest class, there's one small class with 60 students, and then the largest one with 140, and we have like 120, 130, and 90. So different class sizes, but mostly large classes. We hired peer mentors in the classroom, so students that either have taken the class before, so I have one peer mentor that just took it last semester, but was one of the top students in the class. And so the larger classes have 2 peer mentors in there, and we have the same structure, so we ask questions, we print out the questions beforehand and put them on a worksheet, and we use something very similar to an iClicker, which is called Learning Catalytics. The nice thing about Learning Catalytics is you can ask all kinds of different questions. So you can ask open-ended questions, which is pretty neat. And that really gives you a lot of feedback.
I should say that my sort of expertise as part of this group is really in what do we do with the time we've now freed up during lecture. And that freed up time, or what Tony called when we do applications and we talk about what's in the video, that creates time, that creates space to engage in more innovative pedagogies with students, right? That you wouldn't spend, now you don't have to worry about lecturing, now you have more time to do use more innovative pedagogies with students. The one we're gonna look at today is what's called peer instruction. And the idea behind peer instruction is you sort of pose a very complex problem, maybe that affords multiple solution strategies, something where students can kind of get into where the solution isn't immediately obvious, where they have to do a lot of thinking, and they're sort of engaged either in a one-to-one or in a small group sort of situation, working on the problem. So then they would come to class, and they would get this task, which we're going to pass out. Look at the front page where it says tiling task. So this is going to be an expedited version of what you would normally do in your class. So why don't you take 2 minutes and just read the task on a separate sheet of paper somewhere. Get started on it by yourself, individually, right? You need to make sure you understand what the problem's asking and what you're going to do. Students would have had, 15-ish minutes or so, maybe a little bit longer, depending, to continue to work on this task. And then using a number of different technologies, which you guys will learn more about next week, you could have students do a sort of poll of the class where they input their answers to the different questions on this task. For purposes of time, so I would then show the answer slide after I had students kind of poll, right? You could wrap it up or summarize some of the sort of key ideas in it, whatever makes the most sense. For purposes of time, we won't talk about the answer, but I appreciate your engagement with the task. That was fantastic. Right, and so then you can talk about what the solutions were, whatever sort of your learning goals are for students, right? And then that would be it.
Chem 232 is a full flipped class now, so what that means is that I don't lecture anymore at all, not a single day of the semester to the students. So the structure that we have adopted in some of our sections is as follows. So every lecture that I used to give in the class is now an online lecture that I made myself using QuickTime. And if you have questions about how to do that, I'm happy to answer those, and also to give you some of the details related to what Tony said earlier. It did not make my life easier, it made my life a lot harder when I made the videos, but once the videos were constructed, then things got a lot easier. So the students in the class are held accountable for watching the lectures online before they come. In QuickTime, I use PowerPoints in order to show them the imagery that I want to, which I talk over them as we go through, as well as several animations that I made that are relevant to the content for this particular course. The videos range from between 15 minutes to 45 minutes, depending on where we are during the course of the semester, and regardless of length, students are responsible for watching the entire thing. The next day, when they come into class, we spend the entire 75-minute period doing applications of the concepts that were communicated in the videos to problems that are of interest to us in organic chemistry. In the classroom, when the students come in, they're put into small groups that they self-organize. The classes are around 250 people, show up for that. And the ramping up questions usually goes as follows. Low-level questions begin at the start of class in order to ensure that they have basic ideas before we increase difficulty from question to question to question. This gives me an opportunity to gauge where the students are with clicker responses. My benchmark in the class is if 80% of the people have it right, we just keep going. I don't even talk about it. If we're right around 80%, then I'll do a micro lecture to the students in order to cover what were the relevant pieces of material that were in the videos that you may have forgotten about that are important for applying to this particular type of problem. If it's 20%, that hasn't happened in this case, but if I did have a case where the class was performing that low, we would stop and probably expand the micro lecture a bit longer to make sure that everybody understands what's going on. Some people in the room have sat in my class before to see what this is like. It's fairly noisy in there. The students work together on the problems. They're encouraged to collaborate on the problems. They are not competing with each other to get them right. They do, however, need to get them right in order to do well in the course because 8% of the grade is actually your accuracy on responding to the questions. So it is not an attendance poll for them. If they don't watch the video and they don't understand the content, they can't answer the questions and it will negatively impact their grade over the course of this semester. In terms of what we do, so I just described to you sort of this is just nuts and bolts of what the structure looks like before the flip and after the flip. Again, the students spend the majority of their time engaging with what would be the declarative knowledge that otherwise I would have communicated directly in lecture by watching videos on their own or at home. Anecdotally, a lot of the students say to me that they watch them on the train on the way to campus. So I export them in 720p so that they can at least watch them on their phones if they want to. And we spend, again, the entirety of our time together when we're in the lecture hall doing applications of those concepts to problems that are relevant to the discipline.
Now I'm here to show you some tools that you can use to make videos, make multimedia, that type of thing, to use to flip the classroom. Here's our objectives for today. We'll look at some multimedia tools available at UIC, show you how to find some multimedia resources on the internet and types of things like that. We'll talk about creating multimedia content, and then we'll go into using the Echo 360 personal capture software that's installed on those computers there. So you all might have gotten this sheet. This is just kind of a layout of some of the things that are available at UIC. Some are cost, but most of them are free. Some are third-party tools. These are all things that ITL knows how to use. Some of them we pay for, some of them an instructor pays for, or someone who paid for it at school, that kind of thing. But these are all different things. I won't go through that sheet. You can read it, but I will be referring to some of these as we move on. You don't have to necessarily make multimedia yourself. There are actually a lot of free resources for it. One of them is the library. The library has a lot of old VHS tapes, if people know what VHS is here. They have a lot of DVDs, so we get requests all the time. People bring in a DVD and say, I want this on my Blackboard course. So you could bring in that kind of thing. You know, there's some copyright issues related to that. The library can talk to you about that depending on where the DVD came from. But you can put up small portions for a short time on Blackboard to show your students. Lynda.com, I don't know if you guys know that the university actually pays for Lynda.com. It has a lot of training online. There's a lot of resources on Lynda.com. You could link to a playlist of instructional videos that people have gone through. You can link to certain videos, that kind of thing. Every student and every faculty has access to Lynda.com to watch any of the instruction on there. Book publishers, if you're using a book from one of the major publishers, Pearson, McGraw-Hill, that kind of thing, they have a lot of, they're starting to make a lot of different videos. They're trying to go both ways with this, have the book, but also have some instruction already built. You know, the quality varies depending on the publisher, that kind of thing. If you've bought the book and the students have bought the book, you have access to that content. It's not just the test questions that they give you a lot of other access to things too. So that's another possibility for, to get some video for your course. There's other sites, just on the internet in general, there's a lot of different companies now that are making videos that they'll sell to you to use for your course depending on your subject. You can see the one there is this nursing education one that they have some of the demos of them on YouTube. The other one is just by GE Healthcare. Basically, it kind of pertains to some of their instruments that you use in the hospital, but some of it goes a little bit farther in how you could use those instruments. Then, of course, you have YouTube that's got tons of things all over, obviously at different qualities. But you have things like TED Talks that might be helpful to introduce a topic, that kind of thing. So your possibilities for finding other video besides the one you make yourself there's quite a bit out there. Here's a few tools, first of all, that you can use to make your own. This is a Microsoft product only on the PC right now. It's kind of like in a trial version. But you can use audio and video in PowerPoint and add interactive elements to it. So basically, it's a plugin for PowerPoint. You can add video on top of it, audio. It's better than doing just a narrated PowerPoint. And there's a form. That's not a clickable link, but I'm just saying that's the website.
Yeah.
You go there under lecture capture. There's a form you have to fill out in order to register for the software, basically.
I actually implemented 2 flipped class sessions this semester. Our first one was an introduction to correlational research on March 30th. So in general, I first created pre-lecture videos for both of these class sessions, about 15 to 20 minutes long, and I used QuickTime. Really simple software just to produce these basically narrated PowerPoints. And after, when they came into class then, we could spend more time on in-class activities. So I took advantage of the Clicker platform, which I had been using before, but not very effectively. So we generally started class with a couple review Clicker questions, sort of focused on making sure they had grasped the key concepts from the video, and followed by a little bit of discussion if they had problems with that. And then, not by design, but we also had two and two on both these class sessions, applied clickers, where I actually gave them some sort of small group activity to do. In this correlational research session, they actually were given a data set that they had to graph, and how you would with a correlational data set, and then figure out what the appropriate conclusions to draw from that data set that they graphed. Kind of to keep them a little bit accountable on these sessions, I didn't actually have handouts for them. I rather had them reply with their clickers questions about what type of relationship do you see in the data that you've graphed, positive, negative, or curvilinear association. And we followed these with class discussion, and I actually got a chance to do a lot more extensive interaction with the students than I had before, because I had this time freed up where I didn't have to lecture on the basics. So my impressions were they were so much more engaged. I actually asked a question to the class and had them shout the answer back at me, whereas usually I have to wait and prod people, one person to unenthusiastically say a final answer. So that was great. But I wanted to see how the students felt about it in an objective manner. So there's a lot of data here. I just want to point out down here on the bottom. These are their ratings of how helpful the different aspects were from a 1 to 5 scale. And we saw they really liked the chance to have a longer time of discussion of the questions, as well as the quicker questions. Those appear to be the 2 most helpful issues.
Originally, the goal that, for me to apply for the teacher scholar's position was to actually get to know how to teach a large class. So what I did was I developed a flipped class module based on some training on using computer softwares that people would need in order to design molecular cloning experiment, which was missing in the previous curriculum. So I thought this would be a good portion that I could develop a pre-lecture video and kind of increase the discussion during the classes. The problem that I encountered in this particular semester is that I've never used Clicker, and I never considered including in the syllabus. So it was kind of difficult. I mean, I couldn't all of a sudden say, everybody prepare a Clicker and let's use it in the middle of the semester. So I just went without Clickers, and it turned out that though the students who came to my class enjoyed, I think they enjoyed learning these extra things, it was kind of hard to gauge the participation of the entire class, and in that sense, I felt that was really a problem, and thus next time I have to do this, I really need to include using the Clickers from the beginning in the syllabus. And also, I think students need formal reinforcement or encouragement to be participating in the class, so I would employ giving credit to the in-class participation and using Clickers. And most importantly, and this was possible because I had really great help from my master teacher, Mike Seif. And so I learned all these tricks, how to make video, especially using QuickTime that's available for free in the Macintosh laptops was great. And, watching him really implementing flipped class in really large courses was really helpful for me and eye-opening for me. Most of all, what I learned for myself was the importance of problem-oriented teaching and learning. So now that I've got all this time to that's freed up and that I can use for extra things other than just reiterating what they should know, I came to question myself, what are the questions that I really want my students to be able to answer at the end of the day? And then now and it turns out that the question was not really the things that I would ask in the normal exams that I've been giving out. So I think there's a lot of food for thought, especially I want to develop more questions or problem sets that would actually recapitulate the actual situations in the laboratory research. And I think those are the ones that I really want my students to gain by taking this course, not just pass the exams like the standardized test, MCAT or GRE, but really, how to apply these things, more complicated problems. And, I think in the future, I'll be spending more time to develop those kind of problems and connecting different concepts. And these kind of learning were possible through multiple sessions during this TLC workshops, including flipped class, but also based on the performance-based assessment workshops. And so I really deeply appreciated all these and all the teachers.
I had a meeting last week with Elizabeth Romero from the ACCC, and she gave us some excellent options. And one thing we're looking into is Camtasia instead of Show Me. The problem with Show Me was as soon as I made a mistake, I had to delete the video and start all over again.
I'm teaching just small classes that are very hands-on. So already there's so much activity in the classroom, and my lecturing this semester is very minimal. So I've only done about a handful of lectures, and last week I was doing a lecture in my clinical interviewing class on suicide risk assessment. And I thought that that might be a good opportunity to flip the material. But as I started recording the lecture, I became a little bit uncomfortable about the topic itself, which is somewhat sensitive and difficult for students to talk about. And I already knew that at least one student in my class had a history of suicidal ideation and at least one attempt. So I was a little bit concerned about how she and maybe other students might react to the material that I put in my lecture. So I decided to scrap the idea, and I did the lecture face-to-face. But Tony, my MTS, thought that this might be a good issue to bring up. And the question is, that I put out for all of you is, would you consider any material perhaps too sensitive to flip in terms of the video material being recorded, you know, yes.
Can I ask what you're worried about? Are you worried about doing it in person, being able to gauge their reactions in real time, or is it not wanting to have a record of you saying something that could be just sent to somebody else and it's interpreted?
It's the former likelihood. I do like to gauge my students' reactions, and I do need to evaluate them for appropriateness for internship placement. So I do like to know where they stand and what their comfort level is with this particular topic. So there is some value to doing it face-to-face. So I can check out their reactions, we can talk about it in real time. But then, just before the session, I was thinking, well, they're asked to read a textbook chapter on the material as well. So the textbook talks about risks for suicide. It talks about the number, the rates and number of people who kill themselves. So they're exposed to that kind of material in the textbook. So then, is there any difference between the textbook material and what I might present in lecture form?
One of the concerns I have about the introduction of much technology into the class is the distancing effect it has, and the way in which it kind of ramps up the authoritative character of what you're saying. And both of those things can be a little problematic for the kind of material that I teach, where I'm dealing with a lot of different perspectives, some of them very sensitive in nature. And so this is something that I'm struggling with when I'm thinking about what happens when I introduce a lot of technology into the teaching practice.
So, as the TLC Master Teaching Scholars and Teaching Scholars pointed out during the 3-session workshop, some of which was briefly captured in this video, 2 important considerations for teachers who enact flipped instruction are: first and foremost, the nature of classroom activities that replace lecturing and offer students opportunities to dig into the depth and breadth of concepts by working with each other and with the scaffolding of their teacher. And also, how to best leverage appropriate existing resources in addition to creating their own, so that students come to class with some knowledge that can be further developed, extended, enhanced, strengthened, articulated, and nuanced in the midst of peers and teacher. The goal should be to create engaged classrooms that maximize learning and activate and mindfully support all students' potential to make sense, question, problem solve, apply, critique, and construct new ideas.